And this morning we have the director of STBB Attorneys here in studio, Tiaan Esterhuyse. Good morning, how are you?
Good morning, Donnie. I'm well, thank you. One of the directors.
One of the directors. Okay, one of the directors. Well, for me, it's still a big title. This morning's overall topic is power of attorney. When will we need it? But I think I want to kick it off with exactly what is a power of attorney?
Donnie, so power of attorney is a legal document whereby a person, referred to as a principal, authorizes another person, the agent, to perform legal acts on his or her behalf. It's a personal contract between the parties, and it's of a fiduciary nature.
Sure. Okay, so it's not a person. The power of attorney now. It's not a person.
It's a legal document.
It's just a legal document. I thought it was a person. Okay, so you see, now I learn every day. Okay.
Okay, so when do you need the power of attorney?
A power of attorney is used for sake of convenience in events where the principal is not available to act. At STBB Helderberg, we focus on conveyancing. So for purposes of this discussion, I'm going to focus on powers of attorney that we use in conveyancing.
Okay.
And an example of that would be where the in the instance of a special power of attorney or general power of attorney, the principal is not available to sign the necessary transfer or bond documentation and authorizes someone to do so on his or her behalf.
Okay. If I may interject quickly, could you do something like this for a husband and wife? Especially if you're out of community or property or whatever, so that you don't always have to ask the other person to sign something. Can you do that? Or is that not something they would use this for?
No, absolutely. It becomes quite technical in terms of how the parties are married to each other. But like I said, that in itself would be a more detailed discussion. But yes, married out of community of property, you can definitely authorize each other as agent to act on each other's behalf.
Fantastic.
Tiaan, are there different types of power of attorneys? And if I may, how do you use them?
Yes, so in conveyancing, we distinguish between special powers of attorney and a general power of attorney. When it comes to the special power of attorney, we make use of two types. There's firstly the power of attorney to transfer, which is the most common power of attorney that we use in property transactions, whereby a transferor, a seller of property or a mortgagor, purchase and registering a mortgage bond will authorize a conveyancer to act on his or her behalf in the deeds office and register that transaction or bond in the presence of the registrar of deeds, rather than the client having to actually go to the deeds office, which would create chaos. So that we use on a daily basis. And then there's also the second type of special power of attorney, which is merely referred to as a special power of attorney, whereby a principal authorizes an agent, for example, a husband authorizing his wife when he is abroad, and he authorizes her as his agent to sign documentation on his behalf in the presence of the conveyancers, as far as the transfer documents and not only the power of attorney to transfer for lodgement at the deeds office is concerned.
And talking about the deeds, must a power of attorney be registered at the deeds registry?
So a special power of attorney is used for one specific transaction. So it does not have to be registered. The special power of attorney signed by the principal authorizing his agent to act in the presence of the conveyancer is lodged in its original form at the deeds office, but expires on registration of the transaction. So it can only be used for that one transaction. A general power of attorney and registration thereof depends completely on the circumstances. If the seller, for example, owns multiple immovable properties, then it would be advisable for the general power of attorney to be registered. It's recorded on the deeds office records and given a reference number with a PA code. And going forward, a conveyancer can refer to that PA code rather than having to relodge the general power of attorney every time.
Okay. But in general, it is normally just one. You only have one power of attorneys.
Yes. And the approximate cost for registration of a general power of attorney is around 2,000 Rand. And, in South Africa, many owners of immovable property find themselves abroad, still owning immovable property. And it's always a good idea to, rather than having to sign, and we'll get to that, but rather than having to sign documentation abroad, give someone the authority to do so here on your behalf.
So much better, yes, definitely. Tiaan, I want to get into this document now. Like I mentioned earlier, I really thought if you speak about power of attorney, it's a person. So I thought okay, there's one person, he's the power of attorney, but it's not, it's a document. So what essential information do I need to draw up this power of attorney?
The power of attorney to transfer that we use, like I said, on a daily basis, has and I'm going to use the power of attorney to transfer for a residential property as an example. It will have the transferor, the seller's details, full names, surname, and marital status as recorded in the deeds office, appointing the list of conveyances at, for example, STBB, with reference to the date of the sale agreement, the amount that the property was sold for, with property description as per the deeds office records and the existing title deed. Also very important to date the document and insert the place where it was signed by the transferor or principal. It's initialed on all pages by all parties, and the transferor signs the last page in the presence of two competent witnesses or a commissioner of oaths or notary public.
See, that's one thing. Witnesses is normally one thing that people neglect. It's like, it's just two witnesses. You sign. And it's not usually at the end of the day, your witnesses can stand also for that. So that's also a very important
Absolutely.
factor.
In the event of a dispute, the witnesses will be called for evidence. So it's very important to ensure that you do have competent witnesses.
Yes.
Okay, so who has the capacity to act as an agent in respect of the power of attorney or even grant it?
Anyone with contractual capacity, and the basic element to enter into a valid contract is for a person to be of sound mind. One could elaborate a bit more, for example, when it comes to minors, when guardians or parents will have to represent or assist them, but for purposes of this discussion, as long as the person has contractual capacity.
You spoke earlier about someone living outside of South Africa and then just the struggle, and it's better to have an agent then. So can a power of attorney be signed outside of South Africa?
Absolutely, but for acceptance at the deeds office, because that original power of attorney has to be lodged at the deeds office when a seller signs abroad. It has to be authenticated properly, and it is something that we find quite a bit of challenges with on a daily basis almost, because clients are always surprised to hear what they have to go through and how the documents have to be signed, and also what the cost involved is. I had a client in Canada who was charged almost 20,000 Rand to authenticate his documents, which is an expensive exercise.
Yes.
And it's because he was not aware that he'd have to go through that process. So just to explain a bit what the options are, there are two ways of getting documents authenticated, and authentication means that the signature on that document is confirmed as true and correct. So there are two ways to get the documents authenticated to be acceptable at the deeds office. It's in terms of Rule 63 of the High Court rules, which basically comes down to the fact that the document may be signed in the presence of the competent or appropriate person authorized to do so at a South African embassy or consulate. In the alternative, if the document is signed in the UK, Northern Ireland, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Swaziland, or Lesotho, it may be signed in the presence of a notary public only. The alternative is if the country where the document is signed and the country where the document is going to be used are both members of the Hague Convention, the document may be signed in the presence of a notary public, but there's an additional requirement and certificate that has to be attached to the documents authenticating the notary's signature in the form of an apostille. So,
Sure.
to give you an example, I had a client the other day who is in the process of purchasing a property in Mauritius.
Mm-hmm.
Mauritius and South Africa are members of the Hague Convention. So he signed the document in my presence at our office. I attached my certificate authenticating his signature, but then had to submit the document to the High Court in Cape Town for the registrar to attach the apostille to the document whereby my signature is authenticated and confirmed that I'm an admitted notary. And he then uses that original document for the transaction in Mauritius.
Transaction, yes. Sure. That's interesting.
It is quite hectic.
It gets difficult, eh?
Yes.
It really gets intense.
We had someone that had to sign a document in Madeira on an island, and it was remote, and the embassy was so far away. It was crazy. So now I know, and next time we'll do it differently. I do think that they should consider Zoom and all the online options as well.
In the past year, for obvious reasons, they have started exploring a few alternative options, because I think, especially last year, embassies around the world were simply closed.
Yes.
Exactly, yeah.
So very interesting. Okay, before we go, I'd just like to find out, when is a power of attorney terminated?
A principal can terminate a power of attorney at any time, but it will also be terminated automatically on the death of the principal, on insolvency of the principal, or if he is mentally incapacitated. And then in the instance of a special power of attorney, it obviously will lapse or expire upon completion of the transaction that it was prepared for.
All right.
Well, I learned a lot, Lisha. I don't know about you, but I know definitely a lot more about power of attorney. Tiaan, thanks a lot for coming in again. One of the directors there of STBB Attorneys. Please go and support them. Well, not support. If you want more info, you have to go and visit them. It's in Paardenvlei in Somerset West. You can't miss it. On the left-hand side, you'll see a massive sign, STBB Attorneys, the big small firm. And you can contact them 021-850-6400. Tiaan, thanks a lot for coming in this morning.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Bye-bye. Nou, hierdie regskolom program was met trots aangebied deur STBB Prokureurs. Vir vooraanstaande regsadvies teen bekostigbare tariewe, skakel hulle op 021-850-6400. Jy moet net onthou dat Radio Helderberg of STBB Prokureurs nie aanspreeklik gehou kan word vir enige skade gelei wat voortspruit uit advies gegee in hierdie regskolom program nie. Elke saak moet op sy eie meriete hanteer word.